everyone, it's Miss Mahlstedt here, and today we are going to work on our mass lab. Now, if you haven't already finished your mass notes, I want you to pause the video and go back and finish those first. Your mass notes are going to help you understand what's happening in our lab today, so make sure that you finish those first. So today we are doing our mix and match mass lab. Now we're going to work on this together, so make sure you have this downloaded into Notability so you can take your notes along with me. Today we are going to be measuring things. Now remember, we're measuring everything in the metric system. So that means that today, everything we measure, we're going to measure in grams instead of pounds or ounces. So we're going to measure everything in grams today. So, as always, the first thing I want to do when I get my lab is I want to read through the directions. So it says, choose items from the container on your table that will be closest to the targeted mass. You may use a single item or mix and match items to reach the targeted mass. So, if you have a scale at home, which you probably don't, that reads in grams, you guys can use that. Otherwise, you're going to follow along with me here. And I have a bunch of stuff here on my counter that I'm going to show you that you guys can use, or that we're going to use for our lab. So let's take a look at what we have. So for our math lab today, I have a variety of different items spread out. I have some frog toys, an eraser, a pencil and highlighter, some different blocks, cars, science goggles, a toy guitar, a bigger guitar, a pink basket, pretty light, it's made out of plastic, a can of LaCroix from my lunch, and one of our science books from a further unit. So these are the items that we are going to be using for our mass lab today. So the first thing we need to do, and let's take a look at our directions, is we need to figure out what things might weigh close to this targeted mass. So remember from the video that I linked, 1 gram is about 2 paper clips. So we're going to try to find things in our pile that we think might be close to 1 gram, 5 grams, 10 grams, 20 grams, 50 grams, 100 grams, 200 grams, and 400 grams. The video also pointed out that a loaf of bread is about 70 grams. So let's keep that in mind, and that the 2 paper clips equal 1 gram in mind when we're trying to pick out our items. So let's take a look at our options again. Which items on my table do we think maybe weigh close to 1 gram? I am gonna say that I think, I'm gonna go with the eraser. I think that eraser is gonna be really close to 1 gram. So on my lab report under item, I'm going to write eraser. Taking a look at the rest of the stuff I have spread out, I need to find something that's going to be about 5 grams. So what here do we think is going to be 5 grams? I'm going to go with the highlighter. Now I need to find something that's going to weigh 10 grams. So what items here do I think will maybe weigh 10 grams? And if we want to combine items together, we can. I think one of those blocks is going to weigh 10 grams. So I'm going to write block for my item. Now I need something that's going to weigh 20 grams. So I'm gonna guess a toy car. And I might go with the yellow one. So I'm gonna write yellow next to it so I remember which one to weigh or which one to measure. And for 50 grams, what here do we think? Now, we need to think a little bit bigger than the goggles. I think I'm gonna go with that toy guitar. Now I need something that's going to weigh 100 grams. I'm going to go with the pink basket. And now 200 grams. I think I'm gonna go with that large toy car for that one. And finally, I need something that's gonna weigh 400 grams, so the heaviest thing I have. I think I'm gonna go with the can of pop. So I should have all of my items written down on my lab report. And then the next thing we're going to do is weigh them. So make sure that you have all your items written down. This would be a good time to pause the video if you just need to catch up. Now that we have our list of items, or things that we think are close to that targeted mass over there on the left-hand side, it's time to actually measure our items. So today we are mostly going to use our digital scale. Our digital scale, as we can see, has the G down there for grams. Now the trick with using scales is we want to make sure that it starts off at 0. If it doesn't start off at 0 and it starts with maybe a 1 or a 2, that means it's going to tell us our object weighs more than it actually does. So I know that my scale is now at 0, so I'm ready to get started. So our first item on our list for 1 gram was the eraser. So I'm going to take our eraser and put it on our scale. And it'll take a second for the scale to read out. And the eraser is actually 3 grams. So on my chart, I'm going to mark that the actual mass is 3 grams. So we were a little off. So now I'm going to remove the eraser, make sure that my scale goes back to 0. And for 5 grams, we said that we think the highlighter is going to weigh about 5 grams. So I'm going to pick up my highlighter, put it on the scale. Oops. And actually, let's try setting it standing up. So let's try that. I'm making sure that my scale is done moving, and it says 12 grams. So I'm going to write 12 grams down for my highlighter. And it's important that we put the grams so that way if someone else is looking at our work, they know what we're measuring in. So for 10 grams, I said a block. So let's throw our block on our scale. So if I'm taking a look, it zeroed out, or it didn't zero out, but it stopped moving. Our block is 12 grams also. So actually our block and our highlighter have the same mass. For 20 grams, I said I was going to measure the yellow toy car. So I'm going to grab the yellow toy car and carefully place it on my scale. So if I'm reading it right, it says 34 grams. So I'm going to write 34 grams next to my yellow toy car. So we're a little off. For 50 grams, I said that toy guitar was going to be my item. So I'm going to grab my toy guitar and I am going to place it on the scale. So I'm going to wait for the number to stop moving, and that's 45 grams. So over here on my chart, I'm going to write 45 grams. All right, for 100 grams, I said it was going to be that pink basket. And I can also, I'm going to take a look and see what else I need to grab from down at the end. So I know I'm going to need the basket, the toy car, and my can of pop. So I'm going to move them closer. All right, so the first one for 100 grams, we said the pink basket. So I'm going to take my pink basket and place it on the scale and wait for the number to stop moving. 130 grams. So over here, I'm going to write 130 grams. Now I need the large toy car. So I'm going to take my large toy car and place it on the scale carefully and wait for the scale to stop moving. And it says my toy car is only 59 grams. So I'm going to put that down, 59 grams. So I was off. And finally, for the 400 grams, I said, I think my can of pop. So I'm gonna take my pop, set it on top. My can weighs about 368 grams. So I'm gonna go ahead and write 368 grams on my lab report. Now, when you were doing your lab notes today, you read about something called a triple beam balance. So, since you can't be in class, let's take a look at one together before I tell you how to finish up the rest of your lab. So I grabbed the triple beam balance and I have it over here on my lab table, and I'm actually gonna move some stuff out of the way real quick. So this is our triple beam balance. So over here is where you're going to place your item that you want to weigh. Now before we do that, just like the digital scale, we have to make sure that our triple beam balance is zeroed. So that means that everything is set to 0 on the scale side, as well as making sure that my scale is zeroed out over here. So I have it all set to go. So let's take a look at our pile and let's weigh something we haven't weighed yet. So taking a look at everything, what is something in our pile we haven't weighed yet? How about let's combine some blocks. So I'm gonna grab 3 blocks. We know how much one weighs, but let's see about the 3. So the next thing you're gonna do is you're going to place your 3, I'm gonna place the 3 blocks, so you're gonna place your item that you wanna figure out the mass for on the tray. So I'm gonna set those down. Now you probably heard that it made a ding, meaning that the blocks weigh more so far. So now we need to move the weights down to try to get our balance to 0 out again. So we need to try to get our balance to 0 out again. So I'm gonna stand up so we can see it all, or try to. So what I like to do first when I'm using my triple beam balance is I like to start with the heaviest weight first. So the ones are in the front, the hundreds are in the middle, and the tens are at the back. So I'm gonna start with my hundreds, or my 100-gram weight first. And I'm going to slide it all the way to 100. And you heard it ding again. If it's hitting the bottom, that means the weight that you have adjusted is too much. So I know that my item is gonna weigh less than 100 grams. So I'm gonna move that back to 0. So if I know it's under 100, I'm gonna start moving my 10-gram weight next. And I'm gonna move it slowly, interval by interval. So I'm gonna move to 10, to 20, 30, hasn't moved yet, 40, not quite, so 50. My line moved past my 0 again. We can see my lines pointing down there. That means that it weighs somewhere between 40 and 50. 50 grams is just a little bit too much. So I'm gonna move this guy back to 40. So now what do we think I have to move next? Right, I have to move that the 1 gram slowly. So I'm slowly gonna slide it down. I like to go a gram by gram. So I'm gonna move it just a little bit at a time. And let's take a look. So I have it set right now at about 42.2 grams. And if I take a look, I am just about at 0. So I'm gonna say that these 3 blocks together weigh about 42.2 grams. So that was just something for fun so you guys could see a triple beam balance being used in person. Now, to finish out your lab, all you need to do is at the very bottom, it says circle the best metric unit for each. So if you were to measure your mass, would you rather weigh yourself in milligrams, grams, or kilograms? Then think about the amount of spices in a batch of cookies. Would you want to weigh the spices in milligrams, grams, or kilograms? And finally, the mass of 10 pennies. Would you rather measure that in milligrams, grams, or kilograms? So you're going to answer 1, 2, and 3. And when you are all done, you are going to turn your mass lab and your mass notes in on Canvas. Thanks for joining me for your mix and match Math Lab, and I'll see you again soon.